Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming today. So this is um, another meeting of our ongoing discussion and meetup group, trying to understand the nature of uh, value and things like love and alignment, and trying to understand these things both in the abstract and also as felt and lived experiences. And so we've been having a number of different kinds of meetings in different configurations, going more into the focus on the abstract intellectual, like sometimes flying off into the clouds, heavy nerd out sessions on applied category theory, to things that have been more meditative and experiential, like being led through self-compassion meditations. Um, uh, Andrew Holishek isn't with us right now, but he's been guiding us through something he calls reverse meditation, which is quite interesting tantric-inspired approach of basically taking otherwise unpleasant emotions and learning how to relate to them differently and transmute them. And so today will be, oh, hey, Matt. Today will be more of an experiential session, and Dov is going to be leading us through some meditations that he's developed. I met Dov a while back. I'm introduced by Mike Love, and we started talking about psychedelics, and pretty soon we were talking about everything else. And he's become a mentor to me and a very good friend, as he is to many people. Um, Dov is a loving warrior, and he tries to teach other people how to be the same. And I'm grateful to be learning from you, and grateful you're here with us. And so, I guess with all that being said, I'll let you speak for yourself, and we'll be led by you, and then we'll go and I'll reflect on our experiences together, and maybe
Hmm.
have some discussion. And again, if at a later point, like or throughout, whenever you feel inspired, if you could help like bring us back home to source, that would be very deeply appreciated. Um,
We have Dove here. I'm not worried. We will be staying with Dove, with the swords. Dove, if you want, let us know the structure. If you need help to make sure we will stay with that, yeah, feel free to ask, tell me, or follow your.
Thank you, Yen. I appreciate that enormously. So I'm not going to ramble on too much, although I probably will later, but initially. And what I mean by that is Adam's just told you some things about me. You can, if you're interested, you can find out more just going online and just put my name in. It'll give you more information you could possibly handle. It's annoying, even for me to filter through. So, where I want to start today is moving into a meditative space, not so that we're all in a, oh, let's come together and love each other space, but so that we're actually all in some version, some kind of alignment about the purpose of this, the meaning of this. So if you're willing, I know you're able, but if you're willing, I would really like you to first and foremost, with your eyes open, look up into the center of your own forehead. Keep your chin square to the floor and just hold your eyes there for a moment. And as you hold your eyes there for a moment, I want you to breathe out, not in, out. Push all the air out of your lungs. Now breathe it in slowly through your nose. Fill your tummy, fill your chest, hold it, hold it, hold it, and then breathe out through your mouth again like you're whistling without the noise. Allow yourself to settle. Allow a calmness to come over you. And just realize that you can be present in any situation. So breathe in again. Hold that breath for a second before slowly breathing it out as if you were whistling. Allow your entire being to become settled calm, in resonance. Feel a oneness. Notice the mind getting busy, wanting to pull you off in different areas. That's fine. And stick a post-it note on it and just recognize it's just your mind. That you don't have to do anything, but you are, should you choose to be, completely safe. Center yourself in the center of your being into an infinitesimally small part of yourself that you might imagine as a tiny speck of light. That this speck of light is the truth of who you are, hidden amongst the noise of everything else. And that because it's so infinitesimally small, it's easy to lose a sense of it, for it to become awash in the meaning you have given your life that is not yours, a meaning given by external circumstances in the present and in your history. Allow that tiny speck of light that is your soulful self, the truth of who you are, to begin to breathe. Let it expand till it fills your chest, your heart, your tummy, your legs, your feet, your hands, your arms, and your head, all now awash in the magnificence, the magnificent truth of who you are. And allow this tiny little light that is now expanded to every cell and every fiber of your being to go on a hunt. Because your consciousness, as a conscious place of focus, is going to come back and be with my voice. But meanwhile, that other part of you is going to go hunt for the disenfranchised, the parts of yourself that you put away, that you hide from yourself and mostly from others, the parts of yourself that may be too sensitive for this world or too harsh for this world. Let it find those parts of you and invite them home. Allow that to continue as you now take in another breath through the nose, all the way down through your belly. Let the breath go all the way down into your feet and into the earth, down to the center of the earth, and then breathe out, bringing the earth into your body, into your heart, into your mind. And when you're ready, come back to the room, to the sound of my voice. Allow your breathing to become normal, and allow yourself to stay connected to that soulful part of you that is bringing home the disenfranchised parts of yourself. And when you're ready, come back to the room. Welcome back. So, first I want to start by apologizing for the fact that I was supposed to be here on another occasion. I've been here on other occasions, but as a member of the group, I was supposed to be here to lead the group a while back and had a dental emergency. But, you know, when you fall on your head from a dizzy height, which I did many years ago, things get broken and they're in need of repair from time to time, and sometimes surprisingly. So that's what happened. I had to rush off to the dentist and try and get some something working in my mouth that was not working. That being said, let's talk about this, what consciousness is from a place that might be a little different than you may have considered it before. Maybe you've considered it, but not in the way that we're going. There's a lot of talk about consciousness. This is something that I have been fixated on, fascinated with studying since I was a little boy, and actually actively going out and trying to understand for more than 40 years now. Traveling the world to study with these different spiritual masters from a range of backgrounds, from Vedanta, Hindu philosophy, Buddhism, the Tao, Gnostic and Coptic Christianity, Kabbalah, and being this weird kid that my mom thought I might be possessed because I was speaking about things that were just very odd, especially being born in a ghetto environment that I was born into. After studying all those things, I became fascinated with how many spiritual people I met who couldn't get their shit together. They could tell me which way my chakra was spinning, but they couldn't hold a decent relationship together. They had no fucking boundaries whatsoever. They couldn't hold a job, even if they wanted to. And somehow they very often were using their spirituality as a form of validation for being a victim. That's not spirituality in my mind. I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying it isn't in my mind. So I became fascinated. Well, what makes people tick if this is the thing? If these people I'm meeting are so spiritually wise, why are they not functionally wise? So I became a Jungian therapist. Became fascinated with Jungian understanding and mythology and all these metaphorical understandings, and loved, fell in love with Jungian psychology. But as a Jungian therapist, now to be clear, I was also in business, running businesses on 3 continents at the same time, and bodybuilding and boxing and doing martial arts. Because I'm a weirdo, I do lots of different things at the same time. But I'm trying to understand why people are doing what they're doing. So very quickly, I get very tired of being a Jungian therapist, because now, instead of people telling me which way their chakras are spinning, they want to sit there, whine, piss, moan, and complain, but not do anything. That didn't seem to work. So I've gone from the extreme spiritual to the now somewhat pathetic whining. So I hang out with a friend who introduces me to a guy called Tim, who is one of the wealthiest men in Australia, where I was living at that time. And he introduces me to a bunch more people who are extremely successful, who are athletes and entertainers and actors and billionaires. And I see very quickly there's a lack of soul in these individuals. They're pursuing something, but they don't know why. They can superficially tell me why, but not at depth. And I become frustrated with that. In early 80s, I stumbled into quantum physics and the very early days of neuroscience. The very early days, thinking about why, should I take this supplement or this supplement, which amino acids cross the blood-brain barrier, and start wondering and researching that and putting all that together. And then through the understanding of quantum physics, understanding something that is resonance fields, the frequency modulation that we operate in, and that nothing is real unless it comes in through that frequency. So now I begin to put that together inside of all the other frameworks that I've gone through. And that becomes my work, my thesis that I take out into the world to work with very high-level individuals, from politics to business to athletics to entrepreneurs to spiritual coaches, et cetera, and with companies, corporations, and even nations. And that is the emotional source code. that this part of us that we've disenfranchised, this part of us that we've disrespected, this emotional thing that we're not supposed to have, might actually be the golden key we've been looking for. And so the analogy of understanding a resonance field is this. Some of us here, not all of us, but some of us here are old enough to remember owning a radio set, a little transmitter radio. And we walked around with that thing, and exactly, we walked around with that thing. This is even before boom boxes, for those of you going, what the hell is he talking about? And we would tune that thing, and if you tuned it to a particular station, you got a certain type of music. It wasn't Spotify, it was a certain type of music. So if you tuned it to, for example, 95.3, you might have gotten pop music, and that was wonderful. But if you tuned it to 96, you got hard rock. If you tuned it to 101, you might have got classical music. Every time you tuned the dial to a different frequency, you got a different result. That was very simple for all of us to understand at a practical level. When we came off 95.3, the pop station, and we went to 96, we didn't go, oh, why isn't pop music here? We didn't do that. We understood that frequency doesn't bring that. The frequency I'm on now is the frequency of hard rock, and I changed it again. I'm on the frequency of classical music. So what are you tuning into if you are the receiver? If you're the radio set. But here's the interesting thing about all this is you are also the transmitter. And that resonance only works when there's harmony. Now, harmony doesn't mean calm. Harmony means match. There's resonance. So if you're walking around going, how come I keep seeing all these angry bastards? How come everybody I meet is a douchebag? How come everybody I meet is wanting to use me and abuse me? Now, to be clear, I'm not saying that that is you. Let me be clear here. Because you may be thinking, oh, well, that means that if I'm meeting douchebags, I'm a douchebag. No. It means that you carry the frequency of douchebaggery. That's a technical term if you're not familiar with it. You're carrying that resonance. And that's an attracting field for that resonance to show up in your life. So the spirituality, the consciousness understanding that I can go down that road with you into how your amygdala works and your basal ganglia, and we can go down all these different scientific and neuroscientific examples. And they're wonderful, and I love them, and I eat them for breakfast. It's delicious. But that's not the practicality. The practicality is you look into your life and you see, what am I in resonance with? Not what do I like, what's showing up? And then I go, where's the resonance of that? Well, come on, Dov. I'm a very kind, loving, spiritual being. I meditate every day. I drink my water. I om till the cows come home. How come I keep attracting all these douchebags? What is it within you that you refuse to confront? What is the echo that you carry that may not be yours? Consider that for a moment. And let me tell you a little story. Once upon a time, a kind, spiritual, poetic boy was born into a world of mental, emotional, physical violence and cruelty. Very quickly, that boy learned that it was not safe to be spiritual, empathetic, or even a curious human being and live in this place that he was born into. Believing he was stupid, there was an intuitive understanding that he must assess his environment with hypervigilance if he's going to survive. The meaning he gives himself is not truth. It's the truth he's manufactured in order to survive. And he never questions it until he's forced to. This manufactured truth becomes a living, breathing mass that he will call his identity, the safe place from which he can fight off the enemies of his manufactured reality. Decades later, he stands on the edge of a stage, the spotlight cutting through a stark silhouette against the darkened crowd. His posture is relaxed, but there's a taut energy, like a coiled spring. A man who knows how quickly the ground can literally vanish beneath his feet. But there is a certainty that he's safe. The room is hushed. The kind of silence that comes when people sense that they're about to confront something raw, something real. His audience, whether it's one or many, always feels the presence of someone who's faced the void and lived to tell the tale. It's not that he fell 120 feet off a mountain and shattered his face and every aspect of his life. It's that he learned to be willing to stay down long enough to question the identity that had been shattered on the rocks. Today, there is no need for pretense, no performative polish. His face is marked with the lines of the impact and the resilience. It tells its own story. It's a reminder that survival has a price, but thriving comes from owning every scar. Real leadership is born in the shadows of what has brought us home from the disenfranchised shadows of our souls. This version of you that kept you alive as a kid will fail you as a leader. It fails you every single time. There's a pause, you know it, and you may even dismiss it, but you can feel it. It's that pause that we get so busy hustling past that we miss the part of us that's calling us home. This isn't self-help I'm talking about. It's a reckoning. I'm not here to make you comfortable. I'm here to hold up the mirror and dare you to look into it. There is a kindness within you, unspoken. There is also a kindness within you, manufactured. It's not real kindness. There is a wisdom within you, but it's not the wisdom you share. That's manufactured. All these layers of who we are, we must go beneath them and own them. You are a diamond. You are multifaceted, but you live in a world that only accepts a single facet of yourself. So you call yourself the academic, or you call yourself the leader, or you call yourself the something, but that was manufactured in order to survive the environment you grew up in. That is the identity of which round everything spins that you call your reality. But that identity is a manufactured thing. It's not the truth of who you are. It doesn't dismiss your amazing brain and the ability to learn and to study and to share and do the magnificent things you've done. We're not dismissing any of that. But that's not all of you. Are you willing to go and find that little boy, that little girl who is within you. Because if you're not, this is performative, academic conversation about spirituality. You say, well, my childhood was shit, Dov, but I've forgiven my parents. I'm not saying you haven't. I just want to question it. And the question is this: what have you forgiven? Well, they did this or they did that. That's not forgiveness. Well, what is? Why have you forgiven? Let me ask you that first. Well, because they did the best they could with what they knew. They were fucked up and dysfunctional. It wasn't their fault. Okay. Please explain that to a 4-year-old. You can't. Particularly if a 4-year-old is on the other end of receiving the dysfunction from those individuals. You, the adult, intellectualized, may have forgiven them because you understand they were fucked up and they had their own problems. But that little kid in you did not understand that. That little kid in you was magnificently, beautifully full of love and curiosity and spirituality and connection, and was brutalized by the environment. Not because they intended to brutalize it, although they may have. And you can intellectually understand why they did it. But that kid that you were will never get that. That kid within you is looking not for you to forgive them, but to understand there was nothing wrong with that little boy or that little girl that you were. Forgiving another who did wrong to you is an academic statement. It's compassion for the kid who went through the experience that allows you to reconnect to that child. And through the reconnection to that child, the reconnection to the essence, the source of that child, which was magnificent and beautiful and spiritual and curious. It comes to meaning. When you grew up in the environment you grew up in, you had to give it meaning. This is called the anatomy of meaning. Everything around you, you give it meaning in order for one simple reason: to survive. And what's more is, growing up in that environment, you look around and you have a god and goddess. In a traditional family, it's mom and dad is that's the god and the goddess. They know why the grass is green, why the sky is blue. They want to put you to bed when you're not tired. They want you to get up out of bed when you are tired. They want you to eat when you're not hungry and not eat when you are hungry. They have all the power to make sure you survive or don't survive. So you adapt in order to survive. You give the environment meaning in order for you to survive. And once you give it meaning, you must manufacture, naturally, as an evolution of your psyche, you must manufacture an identity that supports that meaning. And what that means is that identity means this is who I am and this is who I am not. There are parts of yourself you go, I can't have that. That wouldn't be acceptable. That little boy in the story, there's no room for the poet, no room for the spiritual, no room for the artist, no room for the curious. So he has to manufacture who he's got to become in order to survive. So he builds a face, a mask, but a face that is resting asshole face. He says, don't fuck with me. I will fucking take you down. That's not who I am. That's the face I had to build to survive. My emotionality gets etched onto my face. Yours has too. In my case, it was, don't fuck with me. In my wife's face, who Adam has met, she is the most warm, loving. Her name is Renuka, which means Mother Earth, and she is that. She is the most nurturing soul you'll ever meet. And she's always smiling. Everybody goes, oh my God, your wife is so kind and so nurturing. That's the face she built. Because she too grew up in a violent environment where a father was a Christian minister and they had to show up and everybody had to smile and perform for everybody and they had to be very welcoming. And they were very generous, but they were also brutal. So my wife walks around with this warm, welcoming smile. It's not hers. It's manufactured just as mine is, just as yours is. But as we step into that manufacturing, we have to deny, we have to disenfranchise parts of ourselves and push them away. To go on a spiritual journey is to go on an inner journey, is to step into the shadows. In the words of Joseph Campbell, the treasure I seek is hidden in the cave I fear to enter. You have given your life meaning, but that's not truth, it's meaning. And you've built an identity out of it, which required you to disenfranchise certain things. And on top of that identity, you have built a set of beliefs and values that validate the reasoning for the identity. And your behaviors have naturally sprung from those beliefs and values. Now, I know I'm in front of an audience who can tell me all the neurochemical reasons why that takes place and what part of the brain is kicking in and what part of the brain is not. The habenula is doing this, and you're going into self-sabotage, and you're now in your prefrontal cortex, and you're doing much better. Oh no, but hold on a second. That's because we came out of your amygdala. Yeah, oh, that's true. That's our academic understanding. But that, my friends, is this. It's you and I standing on the edge of a swimming pool and me trying to explain to you what it's like to be in the water. Eventually, my only option is to push you into the water because wet is different than the explanation. The spiritual journey, the journey into consciousness, is the journey into going on a hunt for the disenfranchised parts of yourself, the parts of yourself you've made bad, which may not be bad. Because what you have in the identity is all the pieces that were acceptable, but they're not necessarily all good either. They're not bad, but they're not necessarily good. There are parts of you that you've not accessed yet, that bring you home to spirituality, that have you access consciousness in a way you've never considered. And you may say, well, I did ayahuasca, or I took acid, or I did whatever it was. But here's what I want you to understand, and you know this as neuroscientists. Those drugs don't do a fucking thing. They're merely keys to a lock. That's all. That lock is to a door you, in order to survive, had to weld close. Now you've been given some mechanism to unlock it. And so you go off and you do another trip to the Amazon. Why? You're already unlocked. You've already been there. But ayahuasca gives me permission. Does it? Or is that your validation for giving yourself permission? What if you fell in love with your own shadow? What if you fell in love with the disenfranchised parts of yourself? And as far as I know, the quickest path to that is to embody curiosity. After all the religions I've studied, I'm often asked, what is your religion? My religion is curiosity. And because it's my religion, I fail at it miserably all the time and have to keep correcting my course. But what if you became truly curious? Curiosity is not the quest for answers. We think that's what curiosity is. What's the answer to this problem? That's only part of curiosity. That's the birth, the beginning of curiosity. Real curiosity comes in the willingness to deepen. I'm not looking for an answer. I'm looking to go deeper. I'm looking to go deeper. If you have a bad trip on one of these substances, it's because you've blocked the curiosity. If you step into the curiosity, you just dive deeper. You connect to that part of yourself. That curiosity requires you to question meaning. That second level of your emotional source code. The meaning has manufactured the identity. The identity has manufactured the beliefs and values, and the beliefs and values are driving the behavior. Question the meaning. What if this is not true? Or what if there's a truth beneath, deeper than this truth for me? Not that it's right or wrong, but it's mine that I can connect to. With that, I will open it up. I would love to hear your questions, because you might go, wow, this guy's whacked. Or you might find some of it interesting and there's something I can offer you. But what I will tell you is I'm here to serve. If I pushed your button and made you uncomfortable, right on. I'm excited about that. Not because I want to agitate you, but because I want to agitate your heart and soul into awakening. I'm operating from a place of the best, or the closest I can get to true curiosity within my comprehension of it at this time. And I'm here to serve you. So please, let's go deeper together. Got a question? Let's hear it.
Yeah, deeply aligned with the framing of meaning and identity, and curiosity is a good North Star. I'm curious if you can speak a little bit to like how to set intentions, like prior to a trip, for example, or really any time. It's like without confining, and trying to control the trip. How do we orient
Right.
to curiosity without just getting off into our minds or something of this nature?
I'm always cautious about setting an intention, not because it's wrong or right, but because of this overriding constraint of keeping things within the realm of my familiar. Even if I'm not trying to do that, I'm going to become uncomfortable with that which is not familiar, hence the term not familiar. So my intention is to set an intention for something, is to set an intention that doesn't have the constraints. So my intention here is to, for instance, might be as an example, my intention is to be deeply curious about what shows up and to always step into that curiosity where I might have been dismissive, or where I might get busy or distracted by. What is it that I'm not seeing? My intention is to see what I would not see, as opposed to my intention is to come at this from a place of love or good. Those things are not bad, but now we're in meaning. What does good mean? I don't know. There's a bunch of people who've been demonstrating around the United States recently who all believe that what they're doing is good. At the same time, there are people on the other side of that demonstration who also believe that what they're doing is good. Many, many years ago, I had a wonderful teacher, Bishop William Todd, Orthodox Catholic bishop, who had served in the Second World War as a fighter pilot for the RAF. And after the war, 5 years after the war, he went to Dresden, which he had bombed. He went to Dresden in Germany and said, he just wanted to look around, wanted to know what it was like. And of course, Germany built very fast. They did amazing things and they rebuilt themselves. And he's sitting in this coffee shop just looking at how much new stuff there is, and he's amazed. And another gentleman around his same age comes and sits by him and says, Guten Tag. And my friend, Bishop Todd, Willie, says, you know, I don't speak German. And the guy spoke some English, and they started a conversation. He had been a pilot in the Lufthansa. And so they began to talk about spirituality. And William, Bishop William Todd, who was not a religious man at that time, said, who did you pray to? Because before we went on every flight, we prayed. He said, who did you pray to? He said, we prayed to God, of course. What about, yeah, we did. So which God were we praying to? If we were praying for victory and you were praying to victory, which God were we praying to? And it begins to show us that even the idea of this God is a compartmentalized ideal that we're holding in the framework of what we call good, from the German gut, right? God, right? So it's the same thing. So my concern with setting an intention is, am I setting an intention that holds me in the framework, even unconsciously, rather than being open to discovering what this can awaken within me that I had never expected? I don't know if that helps or makes it worse for you, Marcus.
Yeah, that's great. Appreciate it. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you. Who else? What else you got? By the way, there's no such thing as a bad question. And I really mean that. If there is a bad question, it's because it's got presumptive in it. But otherwise, let's just go anywhere. I promise you, even if you don't think it's related, it is. I could see the wheels turning in Adam's brain.
I was thinking of the potential obstacles to curiosity and how, because it gives so much. Like recently, I was like um, the way you call on people to live into that. It's like it's such a brave and beautiful thing. Or recently, I was guided through this exercise where we were like looking around a room and we were asked to, for a moment, like let go of assuming you know what you're looking at. So just for let go, assume you know what's going on and you know all the answers, what's happening right now and what's going on with the people around you and what's real right now. And it was quite wonderful to like become like alive again and not just become like a uh, uh, just taking all the vitality out of things and locking yourself into your assumptions. But the resistance to curiosity, I guess like sometimes it takes different forms, like maybe something's not wanting to look at it, or sometimes maybe like assuming I have to show up to a circumstance with a certain confidence because like I might get like overtaken in some sort of contest by like someone who's like more like confident in their beliefs. Then like what ends up just happening usually is just like a needless struggle and no one gets anywhere.
Right.
So it's like I guess the hard problem of curiosity. It's like if curiosity is so valuable, why like do I often need to be like dragged kicking and screaming to do it?
Well, I think if you think about that at the simplest possible level, and even at a brain science level, the brain is always trying to make shortcuts. We're trying to preserve energy. So as preserving energy is very simply, I'll go with the presumption. If I presume this is this, and based on my history, based on what it is I've learned, then it's much easier because your brain's lazy. And this is why the brain is the problem. In consciousness, the brain is designed for efficiency, for burning less energy. So let's make these heretic shortcuts. And then we go, okay, good. No, I know what that is. That's a chair. Got it. No, that's a bunch of frequency modulating and in a way that no one today can explain why it has the form of a chair. We can understand that we shape the wood or the metal to become the chair. We can understand that. But we don't understand how we got the frequency modulation that vibrates as a chair. We don't know that. So the presumption is a shortcut. That's all it is. But the observation that you've got to have, which is, what if it's not what I think it is? Wow, that's amazing. I look at you and I see you as a prick, an asshole. But what if you're not? What if that's my presumption? I can't get past that. I believe, and Perry's not here, but Perry and I had a big discussion about this, and he very generously quoted me in one of his pieces around it, that I believe that courage plus curiosity equals love. Courage plus curiosity equals love. Or curiosity plus courage equals love, depending on how you want to look at it. But the truth, the path to actual love, rather than this woo-woo sense of love, comes from this willingness. Am I willing? Do I have the courage to step into curiosity? Am I willing to be curious about the courage I might find within me that allows me to fall in love with something without any attachment to what it will be for me? We often do that. This is supposed to be this, but it's not. And so we keep shoving ourselves and everybody we meet and our partners into these boxes. And as a result, we can't see them. We can't see them. And by the way, they can't see themselves either, just in fairness. And that's why I believe, not the truth, I believe, that the path begins in a relationship with that little boy or that little girl who didn't have all that shit put on them, but took it on in order to survive. Compassion, empathy. Those are pathways.
I'll speak up. Whew, I haven't spoken up in any of these meetings yet. And
Thank you,
thank
Kate.
you, Dov, for all of this landing. And I have some thoughts and then a question, if that's all right.
Please.
And I love the radio example. I've never heard anyone else say that, but that is very aligned with my own lived experience of consciousness and the different parts of ourselves. My trajectory has been a little funny, where I guess some of these disenfranchised parts sooner or later they come to the fore, whether you're ready for them or not, which very much forced a different kind of learning that is not, it's difficult to do when you're in academic spaces, I'll tell you that. Mm-hmm. It's a fundamentally different way of being and thinking, but hearing you speak as well made me realize something that Adam tells me a lot, that actually have been doing the other work. You just don't get the prizes on the outside. I love the the focus of this group, because what I've really found is, well, that love, felt embodied love, is the answer to that inner polarization, you know, and that the body needs to be a place of safety and security in order for all those different parts to both show up and then coexist, you know. And yeah, compassion being the greatest tool. I'm working with it now as motivator, which is very new. And I guess my question is about, you know, you talk about leadership, and I think especially with the structures that we have in the world, leadership is something that we have a lot of ideas about.
Yeah.
Right. And I think I'm kind of in that curiosity space, but yeah, my question is about broadly, wondering if you can speak about approaches to cultivating the true leadership in ourselves from that space. My efforts to model it on things that I've seen, anything on the outside, hasn't really been, well, mixed success.
Right.
So yeah, orienting with curiosity and developing that leadership.
Thank you, Kate. So let's start here with something you said, which is, you know, you don't get the accolades for that work. You don't. That's the whole point. And that's the reason we pursue the accolades, is because we think it's going to give us what it won't give us. And it is a momentary high. I mean, you know, you all can remember the first time you got something, some academic applause. It was like, fucking hell, this is like 50 orgasms in my brain going off. And then by the time you've got the 5th, 6th, 7th, it's like, yeah, okay, I just did it. Because it's lost meaning. So the question now we come back to is meaning. So when we talk about modeling leadership, we're modeling leadership from a position of meaning. We use the term, I'm going to operate from love, but my question is, what the fuck is love? Not that I don't believe in love, but it may have a very different meaning to me than you. Because for me, because of the psychological work, as much as anything else, love means great boundaries. What does that mean? It means I can look at, this is my judgment, own it completely. I can look at this clown who lives in Washington, who's created a circus, who lives in Washington, D.C., has created a circus, and I can see that person as a clown with a circus. And I can judge that, and I'm okay with judging it. But I can also say, what's the meaning? Now, I can go to 2 levels of that. I can go to more levels, but 2 levels of it is I can ask, what's the meaning for the impact? I can also ask, what's the meaning of the individual? So the part of me that's not judgmental, the part of me that operates from the emotional source code, can say, well, I can look at this individual, because I wrote an emotional source code profile on him, and understand this is an extremely wounded little boy whose dad was a sadistic narcissist. His dad was just a fucking horrible human being. And his mother was cold as ice. And he grew up in that family watching his older brother be eviscerated by the father for wanting to be a pilot and being told that was a glorified bus driver. So to follow your passion or your purpose or your sense of knowing who you are was going to get you beaten and beaten up. So this sensitive, kind, beautiful little boy called Donald said, it ain't safe to be that. What do I need to be? And so when his brother died, that same brother who became a pilot, when he died of alcoholism to try and cope, and that's what we're all trying to do. Please understand, every human being you meet is in some kind of pain and trying to feel better. You want to lead? Lead from that place. Everyone you meet is in some kind of pain, even if they don't know what it is. So he went, okay, well, what do I cope with my pain? My brother used alcohol. I'm not going to do that. So he never touched a drop. But on the day when his brother died and that announcement came, young Donnie went to the cinema. And people go, what a heartless, cold bastard. No. Safe place to cry is in the dark, covered by the noise of the movie. Not a cold, heartless bastard, a very sensitive little boy, but desperately in need of his father's love. And then comes a surrogate father called Roy Cohn, a hard, cold lawyer who praises young Donald and teaches him how to manipulate a situation, and praises him and trains him in how to behave. And what do we end up with? A charismatic narcissist clown who lives in Washington, D.C. and is having impact on the world. I can see the adult and go, you're a fucking clown who's causing a lot of damage. And I can also see, not other than, part of, that there's a little boy who's so wounded and so disenfranchised that the clown doesn't know the little boy even exists. Would never even consider it, because that would be a threat to the identity built in order to survive based on the meaning of the environment. So if you want to lead, that's what leadership looks like. It's understanding that everybody I meet is in pain. Everybody's trying to feel better about something, even if they don't know what it is. So when I walk down the street and I see the guy with the needle in his arm, I can judge the fuck out of him, or I can understand he's just like me. He's in pain. His coping mechanism is different. And I see the other person who volunteers 40 hours a week at the church and feeds the hungry and blah, blah, blah. And we go, oh, what a wonderful human being. Or I can say, there's another person finding a way to cope with their pain. Leadership comes from that place of compassion, of understanding that this experience, as our Buddhist friends will tell us, is an experience of pain. It is an experience of suffering. And bowing to that, nodding to that, honoring that, namaste to that, allows us to have compassion for the pain within ourselves, by which we've designed our identity out of the meaning we gave our environment, our world, because of that pain. Now, that was a long way around that on that guided tour, Kate, and it may not be what you needed. And if it's not, I'm certainly happy to clarify anything. It gave you what you needed. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dov. I really appreciated many of your messages, and I really resonated with your points about curiosity, courage, the ownership of the disenfranchised. And I'm exploring curiosity myself as a kind of a muscle to be built up, not just as a kind of state of mind. I call my framework the psychology of cyborg flourishing. So it's kind of wordplay on the psychology of human flourishing, like positive psychology, humanistic psychology. I see contemplative neuroscience also as a part of that. And
of course.
Yeah, so by cyborg, I mean that everybody these days are kind of cognitive cyborgs now. We use these online tools, AI. Now we need to learn prompting skills. And
we're all augmented.
I have a kind of acronym I call ACE. I call it augmented curiosity, exploration. So that really resonates with your point about courage plus curiosity. Now exploring into machine learning. A lot of us non-STEM majors are not really familiar with it, or into category theory. It takes quite a bit of courage to confront this not knowing, right? Or the fear of appearing as a buffoon, or the fear of being a beginner again, right? So your message really resonated with me. I just want to share a lucid dream that I had many years ago. Now, I've never had psychoactive substances like ayahuasca or psilocybin, but majority of my elder states experiences come from meditation and lucid dreams. And now I've had many types of lucid dream before, but in dream yoga, you're told to confront the monster that's chasing you. So in this particular lucid dream, there seemed to be a monster that was chasing me, and I began flying, and that became a kind of trigger for lucidity, because you realize that it's not possible for you to fly, so this must be a dream. And I remember the teaching from dream yoga that you're supposed to turn back and confront the monster directly, and I basically followed the instruction and turned, and what I saw was not a monster, because in the past I had seen monsters. Now that's one of the uses of being lucid in dreams, because if you realize that it's a nightmare, that you're in a dream, and you realize that it's not really able to hurt you, the nightmare quality really disappears. But when I turned, what I saw was not a monster. It was a small boy that I recognized. It was kind of my child self. Beautiful. And I was just really surprised, and I began embracing it. And the subject in the dream, so basically the representation of me in the dream and the boy, all turned into light. And that was among the most remarkable lucid dream experiences that I ever had. So that really, I think, conforms with your point about owning the disenfranchised, owning the shadow, right? I think Carl Jung's point was that enlightenment was not about imagining figures of light, but going into the darkness. And so I really appreciated your messages. So I think you mentioned many times about spirituality, that many spiritual people have this quality of spiritual bypassing, or maybe there's mindfulness bypassing. I have a kind of similar framework, because I think the word spiritual means many, many different things. So I use an acronym called SHIELD, that's spelled SHEALD. It basically stands for 6 ways that people use the word spirituality. So one is just as meaning shadow, right? So like spiritual bypassing, people can have this kind of spiritual materialism or comparisons, a kind of fanaticism. H stands for higher, or spiritual is somehow the highest ideal, highest version of humanity. And so it kind of corresponds to Taylor Desjardins' point about there being a physiosphere and then biosphere. Now with the internet, that's the noosphere, and then somehow there's going to be a theosphere. So that's somehow that's the highest version of humanity or existence. And E stands for just experience. Now having lucid dreams, having sort of meditation, ayahuasca, those correspond to elder states of consciousness. That's experience. A stands for kind of attitude. So people sometimes would say that the Zen garden is spiritual, or in the night sky is spiritual. So we project our attitude onto something that at least it doesn't have nervous system that's able to experience suffering the way that humans do. So L stands for line of development. So it's basically the same as we were talking about curiosity as kind of muscle. So spirituality is also kind of muscle. And here, I think a lot of people may have this, at least I was confused myself when I was a teenager, that somehow spiritual people, they are, if they're good at this spirituality thing, they are somehow good at everything. We don't expect that from, let's say, chef masters to be good in morality, but we expect spiritual people to be somehow, they're able to take care of all their stuff. They are always moral beings. So there's that kind of confusion, right? Seeing it as a distinct line of development sometimes is really helpful. And also some spiritual people, so D stand for like a dialectic of identification. So some people, spiritual people, identify themselves as spiritual but not religious.
Right.
Whereas some people say that they are spiritual and religious, and so there's a contrast between spirituality versus what is secular, spirituality versus what is scientific. So there's that kind of dynamic. So I wonder if that resonates with you at all. And so finally, I have a question regarding, I think you mentioned in 1980s that you studied quantum mechanics, and that it's partly, quote unquote, our frequency that may attract douchebags or douchebaggery. You said it's a technical term.
It's a technical term.
So I wonder, your framing, how is that different from the popular book, The Secret and the Law of Attraction? Are you using a softer version of Law of Attraction? So that's what I'm asking.
I'm definitely not using a softer version of the Law of Attraction. I wrote a book called What the Bleep Does It Mean years ago when a movie came out called What the Bleep. I think the Law of Attraction is a bunch of bullshit because it becomes a way to try to surfacely explain something, that if you sit on your bed and meditate, that you're going to get a red Porsche, that if you meditate hard enough and long enough, one will show up on your lawn with a big red bow, and if it doesn't, clearly you did something wrong. No, that's not how it works. It's not coming from an attractive intellectual concept. It's a connection to you. I can sit here and imagine that I'm changing the dial on the radio set. The music station isn't going to fucking change. I have to get up and turn the dial. That's the distinction. All this conversation was about is what is the action I will take. So bringing my spirituality, my understanding of consciousness into the practical world, not fucking sitting there meditating about it or visualizing it or putting out some bullshit intention. I have to get off my ass and go turn the station. How do I do that in my life? I tried to lay out some of the ways I can do that. But here's the thing, and this is really quite frustrating, that I know, and I own fully why it's frustrating to me, is because I was that guy, and that is spiritual ego. I've done these things. I did that. I did ayahuasca. I went to the jungle. I worked with a shaman. I did 10 years of therapy. I hang out with Ram Dass. I did X or Y or Z, depending on where you're from. And I still haven't got a fucking clue. I'm still racked with pain. That's spiritual ego. I don't care what you did. It doesn't matter to me. All that matters to me is, are you connected to your soul? But even saying that to somebody is so nebulous. So I don't say it to people, because they'll come up with some intellectualization of spirituality that's got nothing to do with understanding how my consciousness works. Because if you brought up the word enlightenment, and I want to give you a definition that you may or may not have considered. But enlightenment is the most destructive process there is. If your enlightenment is not destroying something, it is not enlightenment. Because your enlightenment requires you to deconstruct everything you've constructed. It's not a beam of light that comes out of the sky with a, oh. For me, it was 9 months on my knees in a curled up in a ball state of what the fuck is going on? Who am I? What is like, I thought I had my shit together, and I clearly don't. And will I even survive this? And that moment of realizing I cannot survive this was the enlightenment. I'm not supposed to survive this in the form that I was. When Humpty Dumpty falls off the wall, please don't glue him back together. I tried to do that for the first 9 months after I fell. The path is not to glue Humpty Dumpty together and with all my accolades and all my recommendations and all my things. Most of the people I work with, I have to sign a fucking NDA. I can't even brag about them. But these are people who've fallen off the wall and the world doesn't know. They have far more qualifications than I do. They're far more esteemed in the world than I am. But they say, okay, I got it. I got to do this. This is the courageous journey. And I want to serve at the highest possible level. So I have to step towards the path of enlightenment, which has no ego in it, but will destroy everything that I hold as safe. So absolutely not the law of attraction. In fact, takes a flamethrower to the law of attraction because it is the personification of the intellectualized idea of spirituality. That it is boots on the ground, walking it through the world and falling on your face miserably and failing miserably over and over again with the refusal to quit. But instead, with a deepening level of commitment to compassion and empathy and the willingness to recognize that I'm in front of a brother or sister who's in pain, who is trying to ease that pain through the cocaine, the marijuana, the ketamine, the acid, the ayahuasca, the needle in their arm, the next $1 billion, the next PhD. They're all just trying to ease their pain, just like me. How can I serve their soul and help them bring home the disenfranchised parts of themselves that is magnificent, that is beautiful, that was made to believe there's no room for it in the world? Again, I may have been long in my answer, and it may not have even been what you were looking for. And if it's not, I understand, and please tell me that. And if I can help more, I will.
I really appreciate the answer, Dov, but I think you realize that this is an academic audience, and the law of attraction probably doesn't have such a good reputation among academics.
I understand that. I'm very aware of this audience. That's why Adam asked me to speak to the audience, because I'm also academic, but not on paper. But
I wonder.
But the law of attraction stuff is what gives spirituality a bad name. So I have a complete understanding of where everybody's coming from, but don't clump it together with spirituality, because it's got nothing to do with it any more than studying the brain will make you a spiritual human being. It'll give you a greater understanding, but it won't make you spiritual.
How would you define spirituality from your perspectives?
After this, I just want to point out Victoria is also trying to get in there too to say something.
Okay. Where's Victoria?
You, Amelia.
Oh, you're down the bottom there. Okay, sorry. My screen is moved. So is it okay if we move on to Victoria? You're on mute.
Yeah, certainly.
Okay. Victoria, please, love.
So
thank you, Amelia, for letting me know.
Thank you, Amelia. So you were mentioning narcissism in a political figure. Adam linked an article to a Bayesian account of psychopathy, and both of these things connected to a question I have about are there some people who maybe the best they can do is, instead of going inwards, is to just focus on their actions towards others? Not that those things are at odds, but are there some people where it could be a risk for them to go inward because they might fool themselves and make excuses for things that aren't good for others? I don't know if this quite
makes sense. That's a great question. And the truth is, absolutely. Every one of us. Not some people, every one of us. Every one of us is really great. I mean, this is what we're good at, right? Rationalization, rational lies. We tell ourselves rational lies. We are emotional beings first, who then we are a post-rational species. We rationalize what we've made up based on our emotionality. If you're going to approach that journey from that place, of course, you're going to get there and you're going to go, well, it's completely justified that I want to massacre 4,000 people. Yeah, of course. So yes, is it dangerous? Of course it is. Absolutely it is. But you as in whoever you are, not you specifically, Victoria, you have to find a guide, because for one simple reason, no one is objective in their subjective reality. The fish cannot describe water, it's breathing water. So you have to have someone who can stand on the outside and have you see what you're not seeing and challenge you on the justifications. After I fell and I was trying to put myself back together, I was interviewing therapists. And I was like, I was 2 sessions. I'm like, I'm running the fucking session here. I'm paying you and I'm running the session. Like, this is not right. And eventually I found this person I was looking to find, and I sat down with her, Pat, and I said, listen, Pat, you better be really good. And she said, why? I said, because I'm really fucking brilliant. I said, and because I'm brilliant, I will run circles around whoever can't run circles around me. I don't want to do that. I want to heal. But to heal, I need somebody who will hold my feet to the fire when I'm intellectually bullshitting, even if I don't know that I'm doing that. And Pat just looked at me and goes, oh, you're in the right place then. And she was great. She was fantastic, because I got away with nothing, which was exactly what I needed. Because you are going to step up into when you're challenged, you're going to step up into your strongest defense system. That's not you, Victoria. That's all of us. When I work with my clients, you know this, Victoria, I think we've talked about this. They fly in to spend 24 hours with me, straight, no napping. We spend 24 hours. There's no drugs. There's no substances. 24 hours with me, because I'm going to get into your unconscious mind, because I need to get past the defense mechanism. But I tell everybody, there is going to be a point in this 24 hours where you're going to hate me. And I'm good with that. Because I'm not here to have you like me. I'm here to serve you. So yeah, you're absolutely right. That's the truth, but not for certain individuals like Donald Trump, but like all of us. When we are threatened, we will go to either end of the polarity, which is we will go to curling up in a ball and shutting down completely, or becoming the very best of our defense mechanism. And you have to have somebody who will pull you out of the corner if you're curled up in a ball and challenge you to step into your essence. And if you're running into the defensive mechanism, you have to have somebody who can say, that's a great intellectualization, but it's bullshit. And I love you enough to call you out on it. Are you going to come on the journey? If you're not, it's okay, but I can't help you. So the question is, how bad do you fucking want it? Because a lot of people, like, you have to, people to work with me, there's a pre-process and all these things. And I say no to lots of people because it's like, you don't want it bad enough yet. And they go, no, I really do. I know intellectually you think you do, but you don't yet. What's the bus that knocked you off that made you realize I just can't do what I'm doing? I can't keep doing this. It's easy for me to do it because it's my default position based on the meaning and identity I created. I get that it's my default. I get that it's easy for me to do it, but I soulfully feel this hunger that I can't do this anymore. Again, don't know if that answered the question in the way that you wanted it answered, but I hope that it did challenge it.
It did. So I hope that people who need it are able to find, or like, yeah, that there's part of them that is able to find someone that can challenge them like that.
But again, courage plus curiosity to this journey to love, which is actually connection to your own essence of who you are, not some metaphysical idea of love and not even some theoretical idea of love, but courage plus curiosity. And for most of us, that only comes when we're fucking desperate. I'm not judging anybody for it because I know it was me. It's like, oh, I'm so desperate, I got to do something. Because I'm gonna destroy the loving things I have.
Hi. Do I have time?
Please.
Okay. Dov, thank you. I've noticed I've been listening from you of you at two levels. If I just listening to the content, I may sometimes get confused, even have similar questions as Shika's does, like maybe need to define some vocabulary terms to know what we're talking about.
Yes.
Occasionally, I may even have a disagreement about some concept.
Of
However,
course.
what I really hear another level, it's your deep, this value, the passion, the message you want to give to people, that even you use, even I don't know, intentionally some strong tone and words, which I really like, I feel deeply here. So today, I don't want to go to the intellectual level to discuss some concept. We can have separate conversations, but I really want to say here, I feel deeply the value you bring here, your message given to us, I feel deeply aligned with. And I have one question is, what are you curious these days, like deeply?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Great question. Thank you. As I said, I consider curiosity my religion, so I'm constantly curious about everything. Where I find myself most curious about at this very moment in time is I'm always curious about what's going on below the surface of what I'm being shown I should be focused on. So that's my curiosity right now, because I think, we've talked about it, Yen. I also advise political figures and guide them. And so on the surface of it, there's the clown and the circus. There's the people who are standing up against that. And what if that's the distraction? My curiosity is, what if that's the distraction? What's the real game that's going on underneath that? And that is like 50 levels. So there's the level of, that talks about the childhood of that particular clown. So there's that level. And the level of each of the children who are scrapping in the playground about what's going on. I'm curious about that. But I'm also curious about the murkier waters of who is using this as the distraction so that I don't notice what's really going on. And that's a piece I'm writing right now, which is, for me, this is Maya. It's an illusion that feels and seems very real. As Einstein said, reality is but an illusion, but a very convincing one, right? So it's a convincing illusion, and I am certain, it's not the truth, it's my certainty, that there is a game at hand, and the game requires us to be distracted and not noticing who's actually pulling the strings. An example I gave recently in an interview was that on the surface of it, there is the president. And this was about a month ago. And I said, and on the surface of it, the president has assigned the wealthiest man in the world to cut the jobs of people who might not make it without the next paycheck. The irony of that is fucking insane. But who's pulling the strings of the wealthiest man in the world? Because he has more money, but he doesn't necessarily have more power or influence. The other clown has more power, but who has more power and influence than either of them? What is going on there? What is the wound in those? So I'm always curious about the deeper political agendas and the wounding of those individuals and where they're coming from, and always looking at, I wonder how I could get to that person to have a conversation that might awaken them, because if they're able to wield that level of power and influence, what might happen if they became healed? Even fractionally. What might happen if they decided to serve an agenda that wasn't their own? What if they decided to serve an agenda that is the quote goodness of humanity? That's what I'm always curious about. And then I'm also constantly curious about these amazing human beings who I happen to be related to, particularly the youngest of my 6 grandchildren, the youngest two who spend every other weekend with me. They are the catalyst for deep curiosity. They are my oxytocin manufacturing machines. Being around them floods me with oxytocin, floods me with curiosity, makes me filled with love, because the way they're seeing the world, I get to have some impact on that. And am I having the kind of impact that I want, that is going to have them trust their love, their courage, their curiosity?
Thank you. It's beautiful how we can join more into your inquiry and action, taking action together. Thank you.
You're welcome. I realize it's 10:30. I do not want to take any time away from anyone else. I am willing to stay here. I'm willing to continue with anybody who may have more questions for me. I don't want to overstay my welcome. I certainly have no intention of doing that. Adam, I'm going to hand it back to you and take it from there to go wherever you decide. This is yours, not mine.
Dov, thank you. And well, I'd be willing to stay also. But I think first, Yen, if you would be willing to maybe guide us through a brief meditation. Is Yen still here? I think.
Actually need to go.
Do you have like a minute or two?
Let's Do it. Do, he opened his lights. I love it. Why don't you bring us
Okay.
back to the connection with light? I will love that. Thank you.
So
And I'll stay for
whoever can do a micro meditation.
yeah, like read the inner light and the soul. Thank you.
So allow your breath to flow in through your nose. Hold it in your chest. And slowly count to 5. And each 5, 4, each level down, more calming. 3, as your head swirls with thoughts and ideas, go into the calm. 2, 1. Allow yourself to become curious about what you've learned, what you've heard. Particularly allow yourself to become curious about any part of it that railed against you, pushed against an idea you have. Allow yourself to consider how you can walk your curiosity with courage and love into the world in order to serve at a greater and greater level. And with that, breathe out. Allow your eyes to open and come back to the room. And I thank you and honor you. I'm grateful to you. Thank you for giving me the space to share with you. Please know that I am here to serve. And whether I know you or not, I love you. As I said, I'm willing to stick around for a little while. If you have any more questions for me, I'm happy to see what I can do to answer. Or if you've just got something you want to share, that's fine. You don't have to ask me a question. You just got something you want to share. And I actually would love to know what you got out of this. And if, and by the way, if you want to go leave a message on my LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn all the time. You can put it in the endorsements part or wherever you want, because I'd just love to hear from you. It's really important to me that I'm actually serving, even if I'm rattling your cage in the process.
I'd be interested in if you'd say more about what it means to fall in love with one's shadow.
Yeah. Isn't that beautiful? An idea.
Beautiful and frightening.
Terrifying.
Seems necessary, but potentially fraught also.
Yeah. So the way to fall in love with your shadow, and first of all, that's not an easy thing to do, to be clear. But to falling in love with the shadow means that I am willing to look at the things that I hate or that really rub me the wrong way. And I'm willing to ask, how is this a reflection of some part of me, even if it's a part of me that I don't want to own. And from there, saying, what could be lovable about that? What could be lovable about that? And when I say lovable, not as in hoochie coochie love, but in the sense of compassion, that kind of love. So I can remember that there was a misogynistic asshole who lived in me. But I can also have compassion for the fact that that part of me was designed to help me survive. And can I be in love with that part of me so brilliantly manufactured this way to survive? Is it the best way to survive? No, of course not. But it was the only way to survive, or the only comprehensive way to survive within the context of what I understood at that time. Could I fall in love with, like, wow, how fucking brilliant was that kid that at 7 years old he could work out this in order to become that? Wow. I'm in awe of that. Do I want to operate that in my 50s, 60s, or older? Of course not. But wow, I can fall in love with the genius of that. Falling in love with it from the place of, wow, your ability as a human to adapt, amazing. As I said, enlightenment is a path of destruction. It's not calm. It's not peaceful. It's not, ah. So can I fall in love with the devastation? Can I fall in love with the idea that I chose to fall off a mountain from 120 feet and get smashed up? Can I fall in love with that idea as much as I want to rail against it? Can I fall in love with that idea that maybe that was the only way I could stop me in my tracks? I could fall in love with the idea of that. And if I fall in love, as you know, if you've ever fallen in love, the first stage of love, the first 18 months in the romantic stage, you are filled with curiosity. You want to know what's their favorite food. You don't want to know what's their favorite music, their favorite story. You want to know about their childhood. You want to know everything about them. So actually falling in love with somebody, including the shadow part of oneself, is to become deeply curious about the manufacturing of this being, how this came about. Wow. Think about when you fell in love, how deeply curious you were. So when I talk about falling in love with your shadow, that's what it means. I'm compelled to know everything I possibly could. Most relationships break down because we've lost curiosity. We think we already know. My wife and I used to run public seminars for couples. We now do it, but privately, couples one-on-one. And one of the things we would do is we would have these couples. We'd say, put your hand up if you've been together more than 10 years. This couple. Now put your hand up if you've only been together less than 2 years. This couple. Let's have one couple from each side come up. And we play what we used to call the dating game. And we'd have the couples back to back with each other. And we'd say to the husband, what color are your wife's eyes? Couple had been married 10 years. He might say brown. And then I go to the wife and I say, what color are your eyes? And she go, hazel. And he goes, well, that's a kind of brown. No, that's hazel. And yet the couple that had been together the shorter amount of time always had the answers. We've moved from curiosity to assumption. Falling in love with your shadow is about becoming deeply curious again about all the things you've assumed. You want to fall in love with your partner again? Get curious. Get curious, particularly about the things you're sure of. I'm fascinated by when I'm having a conversation with my bride, who's 28 years now, I'll ask her a question which I am certain I know the answer to discover, nope, that's not the answer. That's my bullshit that I pasted on top of the answer. And it's like, wow. So when you talk about falling in love with your shadow, that's what it means. Does that answer that, Adam?
It does, and for me, it gave me more comfort with the idea, and also made me think of I don't know if they're two different strategies, but so one is like recognizing whatever has taken place, like whatever is in there inside, as being like the survival strategies of a child. You see a child just struggling to be. You can't help but like love a child just trying to be to live and find love. It's just like that impulse is like that's everything grows from it. And it
Exactly.
doesn't mean like you want to enact exactly what that child figured out, but it does mean like you can hold that child in care and you. And I guess the other part in terms of like kind of redemption of to the extent that that which did not kill you did make you stronger in some way, became part of your meaning. To the extent like that was part of a journey, you can like even the most difficult things, like you can find ways of affirming them if they can be taken up into like another meaning. And like that's like about like where you're going. Although I think that can be fraught too. Like it's because then you're still trying to like correct and you're still like on some level feel like you have to compensate and you're making yourself wrong to like in order to redeem that past. But I guess
So it's really important to recognize that it's not about saying, some new age bullshit woo woo of, oh, well, everything happens for a reason. Of course it does. What's that got to do with anything? That's irrelevant, right? We're not putting icing sugar on a turd and calling it a donut. It's a turd. So let's recognize it as a turd, call it a turd, and understand that it needed to be a turd in order to exist. But the essence of where it came from is not Turdville. The essence of where it came from is our magnificence. So again, it's part of this new age nonsense that becomes such a challenge, and where spirituality gets mixed up in this new age nonsense is in trying to make things, it's all got a deeper meaning and everything. Yes, the meaning is whatever meaning you gave it at that time, and that meaning that you gave it at that time was completely appropriate, and actually better than appropriate, magnificent, because it allowed you to survive. The question is, do you want to continue living there? That's it. Does it bring you the richness, the fullness of your soul? Does it allow you to interact at that richness? That's a different question. So it's a really important point, Adam, that you brought up. Really important point. This is not about making it bad or making it good. It's about seeing it as necessary for out of the assessment of that child at that time. And the challenge is, I'm no longer 7. I'm now 37, 47, 57, 67, whatever it is. I need to maybe potentially re-examine this. But if I do, it might be Jenga. Everything might collapse on top of me. That's the courage, the willingness to let everything collapse. Again, enlightenment is a destructive process. It doesn't mean it will collapse, but it very likely will.
the collapse is not the end. It's just the beginning.
Well, every one of us has heard the story of the phoenix rising from the fire. What everybody forgets is the fire had to burn everything down. You don't get the phoenix without the fire. There is no phoenix without the fire. And someone has to burn shit down in order to create the fire to give birthplace for the phoenix. I didn't sit around after I felt a mountain smashed to pieces going, this is fucking great. Everything happens for a reason. I was in grief. I was in anger. I was in frustration. My world had burned down. And what did I try and do? Glue Humpty Dumpty back together again. Tell myself it was all okay. It was all happened for a reason. It's going to be great. I'm going to come back. That's not true, though. But it is a survival mechanism. And as a smart guy, I was able to run that mechanism very, very well. Did it help me? Hell no. Didn't help me at all. Until I decided, okay, step into the fire. And then there was another 9 months that went from fire to rebirth of something that was more true to me. And again, if anybody wants to reach out to me privately, please do so. I'm happy to have a conversation that anybody needs. Yes, Amelia. A Nietzsche quote. The whole reason that Adam and I talked about me coming on and doing this is because so much of this becomes intellectual ideas. And as soon as we go off on those paths, we're shooting ourselves in the foot. It's great to understand all the different processes of the brain. We're all students of neuroscience in some way, shape, or form here. But that's very different than being with it. It's as different as The Secret is from spirituality. It teaches you a mechanism, it gives you an understanding, but that's not the same as being it. It's standing on the edge of the pool versus being in the water. I challenge you to dive in. And if you invite me, I'll even shove you in, as Adam has experienced. Occasionally, I'll just shove you in the water. Not of any malice whatsoever, but actually out of love. I think that this is our conclusion. Adam, thank you for inviting me to be here. Thank you for giving me the space to share my concept of reality, not the reality. And I thank you all for your time, your energy, and more than anything, for allowing me into the space that is how you perceive reality. Thank you. Again, please feel free to reach out to me. You can email me. My email is dov@dovbaron.com. It's easy to find. You can find me online. Like I said, I'm in LinkedIn. If you want to write something in there, that would be great. But if you just want to reach out to me, you can do that. I'm happy to be of service. I write every week, once a week for LinkedIn on a Tuesday, and I write on dovbaron.com and Curious Chronicles as well about the emotional source code and as it plays out politically and in leadership, etc. That's how I frame it. Thank you all again. Really appreciate it. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your presence. Bye.
Thank you, Dov.
Thank you, everyone.